I think you have to figure out ways to maintain the passion for what you're doing, because I think that passion creates length in a career. And if you come around with a chip on your shoulder and, start disrespecting the sport that's really provided for you, and you come up with a bad attitude, then that can shorten things up. And I think that, there's a lot of things you can control, but there's some you can't. And you need to let some of the stuff you can't brush off your shoulders. And I think that creates length in a career.
Unleashed with the Dingo and Danny. Fueled by Monster Energy.
This is a big one.
This is a big,
huge episode, Ding.
Huge episode. Episode. 7 championships. Have you got 7? 7 U.S. Open titles?
I have 5 U.S. Open titles.
No, not 7. Jeremy McGrath.
What's up, you guys? It's good to be here.
The man, the myth, the legend.
This body is not made for running.
I mean, was it made for motorbikes?
It's made for motorbikes.
Made for motorbikes.
Made for motorbikes. Yeah.
Right.
Compact, short, and strong.
Mm-hmm. That's like my body. I was made for either snowboarding or skating. Not made for surfing.
Yeah, but you're learning to surf.
Oh, I'm learning, and I will continue to learn probably for the next 20 years.
Arms are too short, meaning it's hard to get up. I have the same problem. Look at the short arms.
I just
but they can hold on to a dirt bike.
Yeah, I mean, I can hold on to the board. I just they get tired fast. I'm not good at swinging them around.
I love surfing so much. I have so much respect for it, and I love it. I'm not very good at it, but we do surf. My girls surf, and so we go in the summer and surf. But I always say, man, I wish I had a little bit longer arms so I could get up easier.
Right.
Because when I push to get up, of course, my knees are all jacked from riding moto.
Yeah.
So trying to get myself up, I always crash when I go to get up. I feel like I'd be a good surfer if I could just start standing up.
You just need longer arms.
Yeah, I need longer arms.
How bad are your knees?
You know what? My right knee is perfect. I never really hurt it, and it was always seemed like my left knee. So 2 years ago, I actually had a total knee replacement. So, which is on my left knee, yeah, and it's doing great now. But for a lot of years, I was in pain. A lot of years. I blew out my ACL in 1989 before I ever even got a factory ride, and I didn't have time to fix it because I was getting pretty good at that time, where I was getting some interest from the teams, and I didn't want to go take 6 months off to heal my knee. Well, looking back at that now, it's kind of a thing where I probably should have done it, but I might have missed my opportunity. So I was kind of stuck in a little bit of a pickle there. I was an amateur just getting ready to get onto a factory team in the pro level ranks. And if I would have sat out for 6 months, maybe they would have took some other kid. So I wouldn't change it, but my left knee is kind of screwed now. But I did a total knee replacement thing 2 years ago, and it's really been good.
So you went your whole career with a blown knee?
Yeah, whole career with a blown ACL.
And in 1989, the doctors they could have fucked it up.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would have been a little bit of a crapshoot, right? I mean, going to get surgery for an ACL, I mean, I'm not even, obviously now stuff advanced so much 30 years later, but with no ACL, it was loose, and then I'd smashed my meniscus a couple times, and what happened to my knee is because there was no ACL here, my leg pronated a little bit, which is just started over the years, just started going out this part because there was no ligament to hold it here. Mm-hmm. So it started smashing everything here. And so I got a bunch of arthritis and everything. So that's where the pain came from. It wasn't just not having an ACL. That was fine. It's just, it was kind of like at first it's like a pizza with no slice, right? And then eventually my leg moved enough where it just closed in, and then it started smashing everything over here. And that's really where the pain came from. So I needed to get surgery. Luckily, it was way after my career. But yeah, I wore knee braces my whole career. And thank God for knee braces.
Wow. So 1989, what bikes were you riding back then before you got
I was an amateur, and I was riding Kawasaki.
Yep.
So I was Team Green and 89 and 90.
The original Team Green.
The original Team Green. Yeah, they had an amateur support program back then where if you race Loretta Lynn's and, Ponca City in like 4 or 5 big amateur races, and if you were good enough, you'd get a couple bikes at a discounted rate, and you got a certain parts allowance. And so that's kind of where it all started. 1990 was my second or third year on Team Green. And that year I raced the West Coast Supercross series, and I won Vegas Supercross as a amateur rider, really.
And that was 125s?
125s back then, yeah.
And you won your first year in?
I won a race. I didn't win the title.
Okay.
I got second in the championship though.
Yep.
My first full season, I won a race. Yeah. My third Supercross ever, I got second, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know how that all happened. We drove my Toyota truck up to Seattle, and we just were hitting a couple of the West Coast rounds, like Seattle, San Diego, Anaheim, maybe LA Coliseum or something back then, and ended up finishing second in one. And that's kind of what helped me get the Team Green ride the next year.
Yeah.
So, it was wild back then because you could race Loretta Lynn's and some of the amateur races is still being amateur, but also race Supercross. So it was weird. The days of that happening are totally different now. If you race Supercross, you cannot race amateur races. So.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of wild. So, you know what's crazy, and I didn't know this, but you didn't get on a motorbike until you were 14?
Well, I never raced until I was 14.
Okay.
So I was always I had a dirt bike. Like I started when my dad bought me a mini bike, the little pull start mini bike engine one with just a Briggs and Stratton kind of lawnmower engine. And then I had a few little bikes along the way, and my cousin had a bike, and but I was a BMX kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I raced BMX. That's all I ever wanted to do, and that's what I did. So from like the age of 9 or 8 all the way till I was like 14, I raced BMX, and pretty seriously. I was on a factory team as I got 10, 11, 12 years old, and I was traveling the country with my mom, and we were going to nationals and doing all that. So I never really even gave motocross a thought. I was a huge fan, but and the weird way it worked out was a friend of mine that raced BMX with me, he raced a little bit of moto too, kid from Elsinore, and he's like, "Hey man, you should come out and ride moto with me." And I was like, "Man, that just sounds so fun," and I was just started wearing my mom and dad out about getting me a new bike. And on my 14th birthday, which is November of '85, I think it was, I got a new 80. And then I rode it around just for fun. I was still racing BMX. And then like 6 months later, we made our way out to Paris motocross track and had my first Saturday motocross race. From then on, I was like, oh yeah, we throttle instead of have to pedal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it must be pretty cool, almost like taking the training wheels off the bike again, in a sense, because BMX racing, I mean, it's so technical with pumping and the track and pedaling. Like, they're pedaling the whole way through it.
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden you get all that power in your wrist where it's like,
right. So, well, someone looking from the outside might go, well, that's not a lot of pedaling, right? It's only 40-second lap time. Well, you try pedaling like your hardest for 40 seconds. It's pretty hard. As a little kid, you don't recognize all that stuff. But when I was racing BMX, all I wanted to do was jump, right? So when I was little, I was hanging around all the older kids, jumping the biggest jumps. And so when I got a dirt bike, naturally I was like, oh, well, I can just hit bigger jumps with this thing. So that was kind of one of the things that really drew me to it. And I was a Supercross fan as I was a BMX kid, right? So I used to go to races with my dad. We'd watch Supercross, go with friends and all that. And I was always a Supercross fan because of the jumps and all the stuff. But I just never, I never really was like motocross and Supercross are different to me, and I knew how to jump. So when I got a dirt bike, I knew how to jump. I just didn't know how to really ride motocross. And that was about hitting the track with the deepest ruts, the fastest line.
Right.
Sometimes the fastest line may not be the smoothest line. It's the bumpiest line, and that's where everybody goes. So it took me some years to figure out how to ride my dirt bike like a professional should, but I could out jump anyone really early on.
Was there ever a moment there where was freestyle motocross even a thing back then?
Freestyle motocross didn't even exist.
No, right?
I mean, I was doing freestyle motocross in my backyard for my parents before freestyle motocross even existed. And that back then consisted of, cross ups and one handers and no footers and even like nothings and stuff like that. But, some might argue, but I think freestyle started when I did the Nac Nac the first time.
Danny, can you show Jeremy your Nac Nac?
Well, I almost confuse it with a heel clicker, but I'm pretty sure the Nac Nac is when you're riding. And then is it the victory jump where you do the Nac Nac, or just throughout the course? But you
no, the victory jump would be the finish line jump, right? But you usually do it on the triple jump.
On the triple jump. And you take the leg off and you get it all the way around here, and then you back here.
Yep, that's
you're
exactly
still going
right.
this way.
Yep.
And then you bring it back. Did you do that? And you kept probably your bad knee on the bike, right? Or no?
The bad knee was on the bike, right? Because the throttle was here. And if you do a Nac Nac with your left leg and come around and you have the throttle over here, you can't really control the bike much. So the way it worked out was, right leg comes over. It started out really funny because at first, you know, when I started doing the Nac Nac with my buddy Eric Carter in my backyard, and he was a BMX guy, and the trick actually came from BMX, so we ripped it off from BMX. And
was it called a Nac Nac on the BMX?
Yeah, it's called a Nac Nac. Yeah.
So you didn't name it?
I didn't name it. No.
You're just the first person to do it on a motorbike.
I was the first person to do it on a motorbike. Yeah.
Because I always wondered, where did the name Nac Nac come from?
Well, it's a BMX trick, and you know, if you look at guys like back in the day, freestyle BMX dudes like the Park guys, Eddie Fiola, you know, Brian Blyther, all these guys that rode at Pipeline when I was a little kid racing BMX, they were doing Nac Nacs, and can is the opposite of Nac Nac, right? So it's leg forward and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just really just the name came from that. And then I just tried to adapt it to moto because I was like, man, I need something that's going to make myself stand out, you know, more than the other guys. And I was always a bit of a show off. I wasn't a huge talker, but when I put my helmet on, I would just show off a lot. And so that's kind of where it came from. And at first the Nac Nac was a little bit funky looking, you know, had to lean the bike over and then just put your leg straight back. And then over the years, it's kind of evolved where you take off the jump and you whip the bike, and then, you know, you step off like that. And then, you know, now guys, Tom Parsons and these guys have taken it to a whole nother level. Stewart, like these, where they whip it, and they're like upside down. Jared McNeil can do it.
Those inverted whips are
the inverted Nac is like, how the heck do they stay on the bike? I have no idea.
It was cool up at that thing we did earlier this year with Twitch, the Twitch and Friends thing, to see all those guys like a train of Nac Nacs.
Yeah, that was a major respect level for me. Like, just those guys were. First of all, I'm still a fan of moto so much, and to be able to ride with Twitch and all those guys, and still be able to, you know, hit some of that stuff, you know, it really makes me feel good. And then for them to do want to ride with me and do a tribute Nac Nac train, that was pretty sick. I was stoked.
Yeah, that was a big moment. Who couldn't do one? Who can't Tucker? Who can't do it really well? Who does it weird?
I don't know. Like, maybe it's Taka, but and in fact, now that you've brought that up, I don't know if I've ever seen him do it.
I don't think he can.
I know, like, Matto and the other part of most of that crew can do it. And it's funny, I don't know, the Nac Nac to me obviously doesn't seem so hard to do, right? But some moto guys are like, dude, I'm not doing that. I can't do a Nac. And when they try, it's awkward for them, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah.
So when you started racing and you started racing later, was it just one of those things where you knew you were not just good, but you knew you were great? Like, or did you have to work extremely hard to get to the front of the pack in the beginning there?
You know, it was weird. I knew that there was something there, right? But at the same time, you know, I knew that I could jump good. I had really good timing and all the stuff that BMX required, right? Because they don't have suspension, so you had to be really smooth. And back then, the moto style, you know, the guys that I looked up to, the generation before me, the Guy Coopers and the Jeff Stantons and the Jeff Wards and the, you know, all the Ricky Johnson and David Bailey, their style really, when they took off the jumps, they weren't trying to scrub. They were trying to get as much height as they can to get the length they needed to make the jumps, right? So when I came in, you know, I was learning and kind of cutting my teeth on my own BMX sort of moto style at my home track. I had a Supercross track at my house. And I mean, not many kids at 14 years old have their own tracks at their house, and I was lucky enough to be one of them. My dad and I we had a tractor and we'd build jumps and we'd do all that, and that's all I ever did. Now, you know, I when I first started, I figured my goal was like, okay, let's see if I can be good enough to make it to Supercross. Like, if I can get to the stadium, then I know I could probably be good at this because it's all jumping.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out I was good at it, but the road to Supercross was a little more difficult than I ever imagined, right? Because first of all, I had to try to be good enough at these amateur motocross races, which I was really, you know, I say this all the time. I was learning how to ride motocross, ride a rough track, the right lines and all this stuff. I was still learning how to ride motocross 3 years into my pro career, where I had full factory rides from Honda and the whole thing. I mean, I just wasn't great at it. And it took a lot of, you know, it took a lot of time took a lot of investment, took a lot of thought, and try to retrain myself, because jumping was easy for me, right? So I was like, oh, you could always take the easy way out. And I started winning at Supercross once I got there right away. Started doing pretty well. That like my second or third race, I finished second in the West Coast Series. No one even knew who I was at the time. We drove there in a truck, and I ended up finishing second. But, trying to be good enough at motocross so I could get a sponsor, like get someone like Team Green or someone like Honda to help me out to get to Supercross was kind of the goal at that time. Did I really focus on motocross at the time? No, I really didn't. And that's why I was, I'll say it, I was a bit lazy. Supercross came real easy to me. Yep. It was real fun. It was much more fun. There was lights, there was glam, there was people.
Yeah,
motocross is muddy and you get dirty and it was rough and it's hard. And I was like, I'm just a Supercross guy.
You're a natural showman.
Yeah, I'm just a showman. I need to be under the lights. That's where I need to be. Yeah. So that was my intention. But then, you race motocross, you ride Supercross, you race motocross, and then people start talking and, you're getting your butt kicked outdoors and you're not very great at it. And they're like, oh, well, this guy can ride Supercross, but he's not very good at outdoors. So he'll probably never be regarded as one of the best guys out there and all this stuff. So, people start saying that stuff and it starts getting at you.
Yep.
And so, I said before, I'm not a big talker, but I'm definitely a shower. Right. So I was like, I was getting kind of pissed at people saying this stuff. And I was like, I'm all about proving people wrong. I love when people tell me I can't do something, and that's when I figure out how to do it and do it better than they can. And that's kind of where I was in motocross, and figured it out. Wasn't real great at it, but then I committed myself to it, and then I started winning everything in those races too. And that's where it kind of all culminated in 1995. I won Supercross and motocross, both titles in the same year. Then 96, I won 14 Supercross out of 15, and then won 7 or 8 motocross races out of 12 that year. Ended up crashing and hurting my foot and didn't win the title. So that one really stings from 96, but I got pretty good at it.
What race did you lose that year?
I lost St. Louis Supercross. Yeah. And Jeff Emig beat me. He was like my main rival. And, it was just a weird night, like track. So being from California, these things make a difference, on the conditions of the track. It takes years to figure out how to ride in soft dirt with big ruts and all this stuff. In California, the dirt's hard pack. We don't ride in rain. We ride on hard pack, and we don't ride in ruts. That's just how it is when you're a West Coast kid. You have to learn all those things as you become a pro and you race with other guys. So that night was a track that was rutted, really soft. It wasn't suited to my perfect, at that time I should be able to ride anything, right? I was winning everything. I should be able to ride any condition. Well, true, but I got a really bad start that night and was coming through the pack, and guys weren't really that friendly. I got knocked off the track a couple.
I wonder why they weren't.
Yeah, someone just wanted to beat me so bad, and I think, it wasn't someone, it was all of them really. And I got knocked off the track by LaRocco, and then people made it very difficult for me to catch up. And I got close to Jeff at the end, but I just didn't get him. So yeah, just finished second that night. It was that
hurt, huh?
It hurt, but it was a relief too, because there was a lot of pressure going up to that. I'd won 13 races in a row, and it was like, holy shit, man, I gotta keep this train going, and there's 2 races left, and just stars didn't line up that night. But I won the next week, so
so that felt good to redeem yourself.
I was like, yeah, okay, it wasn't a fluke. So
14 out of 15 is not bad.
Yeah, not bad. I was okay with it. It would have been cool to have a perfect season, but looking back, it was, it's all part of the process.
Has anyone had a perfect season?
I think Rick Carmichael has. He has outdoors.
Right, but not Supercross. Not Supercross.
He's done the same as me. He's won every race, I think, but one.
Yep.
In the year. So there's him and I, and then he's had a perfect. I think maybe he's had a perfect season, or even 2 for motocross, because they have 24 motos back then, and he might have won them all. I don't know.
Did you guys ever battle back in the day, or is it
we battled kind of when it was like changing of the guard time.
Right.
I'm about 10 or 11 years older than he is. And his mom and dad and my mom and dad are friends, and he used to come to California and stay with us, and I basically raised Ricky, when he was out on the West Coast. We hung out a lot. and rode moto, and we were great friends. We still are. And the media made it always seem a little funny. You know how they do that.
Well, they've got to build that out. They've got to build that out, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the battle. I mean, Ricky came along, and, you know, I knew eventually he was going to be the guy. I mean, he's my friend, but he was eventually going to be the guy. I mean, and but I was proud because it took him 3 seasons before he beat me.
You made him work for it. It's the same with Danny and Sean White. It was like the changing of the guards. There was about 8 years between those guys.
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even a few other people, like for me, it was like Terry Hawkinson and Daniel Frank, right? It was like these guys that, you know, as me as a younger one, I looked up to them and was like, man, it'd be so cool to compete with them. And then, you know, then you get to that stage where they're kind of like, yeah, well, I'm, you know, having more fun or not taking it as serious. And then it was like, so it wasn't like you really get these like one-on-one battles in a sense, you know?
Yeah, you know, I always thought the funniest thing for me was, you know, like yourself, when you get to a certain point and you're eventually going to race with your heroes kind of, or compete with your heroes. It's like, man, I got to go out and beat the guy that I just like have a poster on my wall of this dude, you know? And I thought that was really interesting when that happened for me. And you know, look, I tried to hold off Carmichael for as long as I could, right? But Father Time says that eventually it's going to happen. You know, there's always going to be someone better than we are. The kids are younger, they're better, they're faster, they're stronger. I mean, it's just, you know, everything gets developed a little earlier these days, and with whatever sport it is. So, you know, I like I said, you know, it took him 3 years to figure out how to put the puzzle together, and I'm proud of that. So, you know, being a Supercross racer in the 90s was something I could have never dreamed of. So it's pretty amazing.
I think you won, like, what, in that 10-year period, you won 7?
Yeah, I won 7 and finished second once and third once. So,
which was harder, the second or the third?
Well, I mean, they both sucked. They both sucked because, you know, the writing was on the wall when you're getting second and then you're getting third. It's like, oh man, all right, well, now the question is like, when do I call it? You know what I mean? So, you know, the first year when I got beat and Ricky beat me, I finished second, and I was just like, man, I need to train harder and try to come back and beat him. But I was already 30 or 31 or something, and he's like 21, right? Or 20. And you're just not as good at 31 as you are at 20.
There's a big difference.
It's a big gap. I mean, I you know, I was just like, I was married at the time, still obviously married, but I had gotten married, and your responsibility is much higher. You have much more overhead. You're not willing to just like push it to whatever it takes.
Yep. And
I think some of that conservative, you know, feeling kind of creeps in. And then Ricky, if you guys know Ricky's career, I mean, he lived by the seat of his pants, you know, like, so how do you compete with that? He just goes until he blows. Right. And luckily he was able to stay on his bike a lot. And, but the guy was impressive at being able to push the limits like he did. So for me, a guy that I was always a guy that I would ride well within my limits, you know what I mean? And not just send myself off a cliff just to try to beat a guy. Luckily my limits were pretty high, but I was at the end, I was trying to figure out like, oh, how am I going to compete with this? You know what I mean?
You're like, how do I readjust my limits?
Yeah. I've already settled into what I am, and I just can't find that next gear to go compete with a guy that's willing to go as whatever it takes. And, you know, I was just, like I said, it's just a fortunate time for me. I was able to have a high limits, and Supercross has given me everything. It's just had such a blast doing it. And it was a great time to live, I think, you know, great time to grow up.
Right. So, all right. But what about this? You, Carmichael, Stewart, Villapoto, and Chad Reed, all at your peak, line up. Who wins? I
mean, look, thank God we can never find out, right? Yeah. I mean, if you know, on one crazy night, if that actually happened, I mean, you almost have to say that Stewart was like the fastest guy ever.
That's why I liked watching him ride, because he either ride or died. It was like that. Exactly.
He was, Carmichael was a little bit the same, but had a little more control. But Stewart on a perfect night for Stewart was like, he did stuff on a bike that you just thought was not even possible. You know what I mean? So, huge fan of James. He was always amazing. to watch ride. It's just a shame that he couldn't put it together for championships, but the guy has 50 Supercross wins.
That's crazy.
So that's pretty impressive for a guy that was, kind of all over the map during his career. Yeah, definitely one of the greats.
You said back there in the beginning, when you fully committed, what's the difference, or how was that process of you fully committing? Because I see the guys today, and it seems like a lot of the guys, when they're in it, it doesn't seem that much like they're having that much fun because there's so much pressure and so much to go on to. Was that the same for you back then, or was it a little different?
Well, I think one of the things for me was the fun had to be there, and which made it good, right? There was times when it wasn't great, when you had, like I talked about, being committed to the sport, right? I had to work harder, I had to train harder, I had to eat right, I had to do all these things that really weren't as fun as just having a great time and relaxing and having fun riding. Well, it took that level of commitment to be the best, and I was willing to do whatever it takes. I think what's changed from me to now, my generation to now's generation, is it's so much more corporate, right? There's bigger money, bigger pay, much more pressure. There's many more eyeballs on you, because of social media and the things you do. Your life is scrutinized way more. And a lot of these guys probably not having fun because they're not being allowed to grow up. When you're a kid, you have to make mistakes. You have to learn how to grow up. And I made plenty. Luckily, it didn't have eyeballs on me all the time because I wasn't afraid to have some fun, but I did the work to go with it. And today it's a shame that the kids can't grow up a little bit freer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like, you really got to stay focused from such a young age, right? Where,
right.
They're looking at it and following the footsteps of their heroes, but they're also starting those footsteps at 4 or 5 years old. Yeah. And like you said, without social media, I feel like we might have had some more fun in our careers and
thank God there was no social media.
I'm really happy also that a lot of my stuff can only be found on YouTube and not on Instagram or Facebook. Right.
Yeah.
No, I think we're all in the boat there. We're pretty lucky that life was a lot different pre-2010.
Yeah, it was, and we're a little bit like dinosaurs in a sense, but dinosaurs had the free world to roam.
Yeah,
we had a good time, and I always loved it back then too, because I don't know about you guys, but it was a bit of a mystery what the other guy was doing, right?
Yeah.
So for competition, like, what tricks are you learning? No one knew unless you told someone or you had someone there. What are you doing? And it was the same in moto. Like, is he working hard? I heard he was at a party. I heard he was, he was at a killer costume party. Oh, they were at a club, whatever. So people are always like, what's going on? And I loved that because I loved to make people think that I wasn't doing any work, and that was kind of part of a strategy for me. It was like, I want everyone to hear that I'm out playing or doing whatever. But then, secretly I'm behind, at the track, putting in more laps. I'm working harder. I'm running. I'm doing more stuff than the rest of the guy. And so when you get to the race, they're like, man, this dude was out this week, and look, he's just killing us by like 30 seconds. So I always love that side of it because I love the mental side of it. But nowadays you can't do that. Everything's out in the open, and you're ultra vulnerable, right? Because it's like people know if today you went out and rode your bike right now, people know you're doing it.
Yep.
And if you didn't, they know you're not doing it. So athletes today are so much more vulnerable to what people's opinions are and the other athletes. So I think being an athlete is cool, but it should be a little more secretive.
Well, that's what Danny was just saying. He just came back from Europe where there's pipe training right now because the Winter Olympics are coming up in February. And Danny was saying it was kind of crazy because the years past, people had shown one his own private pipe or private training sessions, but you just said literally everyone that's competing in the Olympics in February is all there showing their shit.
Yeah.
And it was like this 4-week camp where the last week of it was like, holy crap. And you saw people just doing triple flips, and it was like one guy lands his triple flip, and the next thing you know, the next day, 2 of his teammates do it. The next thing you know, like the whole U.S. team's in the airbag training these tricks. And it got to the point where, in snowboarding, we're not like the biggest fans of airbags because, it takes away the idea of like, it's nice to try something the first try, but it also is very different landing in a bag than it is back in the half pipe.
Yeah, for sure.
And they pulled this bag at the end of the session, and there was like 40 people lined up on it. Like waiting like the last minute, still trying to get like these crazy tricks in, where before, like you said, you know, people were like keeping things a bit private, you know. And even like in my career, it was like I'd go into pre-competition training sessions where we had the ability to ride at our whatever level we wanted. So it wouldn't be like I'd be pushing my amplitude and all of my tech tricks through this event. But then sure enough, when finals came on, people would be like, wow, are you a different person? And it's like, no, this is how I want to ride here, but I'm not trying to do that every single run.
Right.
You know?
It's so risky.
Like I'm only there to do it Supercross style, when the lights are on,
main event,
the babes are along the decks, and there's people to impress. You know, I'm not trying to just impress my peers.
Right, and
like,
the level of danger is so much higher. And when you were practicing, you didn't have an airbag, so if you busted a trick out, you better get it right, or it's really high consequences. You know, so yeah, I totally agree. It's just a weird. It's a different way of sport today.
Did you guys have any like cheat moves back then that you could like, you know, like what, like for practicing, or it was kind of just get out there and getting the whoops?
Yeah, it was out getting the whoops. I mean, this same thing. I mean, you had to. It still amazes me. It's funny because it's the same in your sport, right? Like the big tricks are going to hurt if you fall. The amount of laps that you know, in some sports they're protected. Guys are protected. Like, okay, we're going to save you for the game. Football, baseball, some of that. Well, in moto, it's different. These guys are out here riding hundreds of laps on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they take Thursday off and they go to the track and race. So the risk factor, you know, and then to try and do it at full speed, you know, because what happens in moto, obviously, just like anything, if you feel like, man, I need to be faster, I need to work on speed, so you need to ride 110%. So eventually your 110% feels like 100%, right? And then you got to figure out these ways to keep increasing speed, and so that's what these guys are doing all week long. And it's huge risk, you know.
Yeah.
Huge risk.
What was your most memorable championship?
You know, the first one was really, really cool, which is my first 250cc championship in '93. I was factory Honda at the time, and it goes back to that thing where I was racing with my heroes, you know. And then the first win I got in the 250 class was at Anaheim in '93, which is the third race of that series that year. And I had to pass Jeff Stanton, which is one of my favorite dudes in the sport. And he was on Honda factory with me. I was the young kid coming up, and I had to pass him to win the race, but I was behind him. I'm like, oh man, should I pass? I'm talking, having like a conversation with myself. Yeah. Like, should I pass this guy? I love this guy. Like, I don't know if I want to beat him. And, it was kind of, you know, you have those conversations with yourself quite often when you're in sport trying to compete. And, yeah, once I did it, it was like, okay, now the door's open. Now I can go ahead and try and do it. And I always felt bad because I started winning a lot, and I feel like I put him in retirement, you know. But I guess that's just the nature of sport. You're only as good as your last race, and it's definitely true in Supercross. How
many people do you think you retired when you started winning?
I think I put Bradshaw into retirement a couple times. I think, you know, I mean, look, there's a lot of guys that were the same age as me, but we, you know, and they had great careers too. It's just I ended up winning a lot more than they did. But they were still guys I competed with that I considered dangerous to race with because they were fast. But more so in the very beginning of my career when it was kind of the changing of the guard for those older guys, and then I came in, which is, it cracks me up when I say that about Bradshaw because I'm such a fan of Bradshaw. He was a guy that I loved. You know, Damon Bradshaw was like, he was the first dude that was wild and just kind of badass, and he just like kicked ass on all the older guys. But you know, and I always loved him, but he's honestly, he's a year younger than me. And it goes back to kind of what you're saying earlier about the window for these guys. You know, they start at 4 and 5 years old. He was one of those kids. And I think the reason I got to race so long until I was 30 or 31 was because I started at 14.
Yep.
You know, and now, and you take Ricky Carmichael, for example, who was just been a complete badass since he was 4 years old. He stopped racing at 26 or 25.
Yeah.
And I really believe there's a window there of when you can just push your body to the limit, and it's just it's a time period. My time period was moved up a little bit because I started later, and you know, I think Carmichael, for instance, was just he'd won a lot. He was like, yeah, I'm burnt out. I'm done. And just happened at a younger age.
Well, it just seems like there's a pattern there too, because I think Villapoto was kind of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of them too.
And then I'm trying to think, the only other person that wasn't like that was Chad Reed, who was, I think, 40 still racing.
Yeah, he just retired a year and a half ago or whatever. and he wasn't competing for the wins at the end, but he was still riding really well.
He just loved it.
Right. And I think Chad started a little bit later too.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think he was a kid that started at, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
So he is one of those ones that got the window obviously longer, and you don't see that a lot these days, right? The kids start younger and they stop earlier.
Well, it just seems like something. There's so much pressure and there's so much high stake for what you guys do that retirement earlier is just like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, how much more do you want to put your body through it?
Right. There's high stakes. There's a lot of pressure. And guys that are good at it, they make enough money where they don't have to worry about it. So they're like, when you don't have the want anymore or the need,
yep.
The motivation goes down a little bit, right? Thank God for those guys making more money than keeps my records safe.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a lap count, right, where you can really only do 1 million laps at full throttle. And then after that, you're maybe
fried.
Pushing it,
Yeah, that could be the case. And if you look back in the history of the sport and the different guys, that could be whatever that lap number is, but I feel like it's a 10 or 11-year window.
Yep.
And after that, it just whatever year, Carmichael turned. I mean, he was winning 125 class when he was 16 or 17 for Pro Circuit for Cowie, right out of the gate. He started winning, right? So he went from Loretta Lynn's to the next week to the Nationals and won. And then he was just winning every week. And then by the time he's 26, he's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
He won the championship and then retired. Pretty awesome.
Wow. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen this year?
Oh man, gosh, there's been some changes, right? So Tomac's no longer on Cowie; he's riding Yamahas.
Yep.
He's going to probably find some motivation, although, he's probably in the twilight of his career. He's made a bunch of money.
Yep.
He's won a lot. He hasn't won Supercross a ton. He's won a lot of races,
just
but one
year,
championship.
Right? Yep.
He is married. He has 2 kids now, and things that changes things a little bit. And there's some young guns coming along, right? Adam Cincerello, who's been strong, but this is going to be a year that he's going to really need to do some great work because he's been getting hurt a little bit here and there. But the field's deep. I mean, it's deep. There's a bunch of guys in there. That Ferrandis kid that's on the Yamaha that's won this summer, he's going to probably be really good. There's Chase Sexton that's on the Honda team. Ken Roxon's going to be strong. Jason Anderson switched to Cowie. Maybe he'll find some motivation. I feel like the field's pretty deep this year, and that's one of the things that's been great about Supercross the last few years is when they line up, you're just not sure who's going to win, and that's good as a fan. So I think the sport is in a healthy spot. I'd like to see some more personality with the guys. Kind of sets themselves apart from the others, but still loving Supercross.
You think it's hard to? What you're saying is totally correct, right? Like that personality is such a live wire within sports in general. It's like even, the Conor McGregor type style thing. And, you guys have had it yourself, Carmichael, even, Chad Reed and these guys that are just, even Stewart, what I mean? Like they're larger than life personalities.
Yeah.
You think it's tougher now because of the scrutiny and everything that comes with it that you can't kind of be that?
Well, I think it certainly has to be. These guys are kind of under the pressure to be this kind of robotic, in shape, professional motocross rider, supercross rider.
Ken Roxon kind of has it.
He does. He has some flair. Cincerello has it. We just need him to see him win more. Aaron Plessinger has some funny personality.
Yeah.
But he hasn't won enough. We haven't seen him enough. He's changed to KTM this year, so let's see how he does. Cooper Webb needs a little more personality. He's done some winning, but we need to know him more, and I think, I that's one of the things that just social media does, right? It just doesn't allow these guys to, sometimes maybe we would just say won't allow them to be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or take that wild step out.
Right.
I want to see who the next Dennis Rodman motocross is going to be, you know?
But that's the thing. There might not ever be one.
There might
There's
not.
got to be at least one.
Well, look.
The original J-Law?
Yeah,
J-Law was pretty
J-Law.
close.
Yeah, he was, but he was, yeah. I mean, he didn't get it. Like Rodman at least was winning NBA titles.
Yeah,
you know,
true,
acting
yeah.
crazy, right? J-Law was not, but
But he was at least acting crazy.
Yeah, he had that part to him.
yeah. Well, Jet's coming. He's got a great personality.
Yeah, him and his brother are
Yeah,
good.
Jet and Hunter. Yeah,
I saw those guys
great.
in
Jet's a phenomenal.
at MotoGP.
Phenomenal.
It's
rider.
funny because they're Australian, but to me they're not. But they are. But you know,
Yeah.
they're just like, come on, guys, be a little bit more wild.
Yeah,
But they
well,
seem like
he
they
has
got
some
it.
personality too,
Yeah,
which is great. I think he's got a great little fan base. He's reaching out to the younger.
he's
you
fun
know,
to watch ride.
That guy's excellent rider. I'm kind of saying that these guys better get their winning done because within a year when he comes up, he's gonna be doing all the winning.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. You competed in some X Games. You won some
I
medals.
did. Yeah, I got an X Games gold.
What's the difference? Because X Games for you, from outside of the world, it's like the Olympics,
Right.
And it's a big thing. But for you, it's a side thing, but like it's still meaningful.
Yeah, you know, at first, I'm a huge fan of X Games, so let me just start with that. X Games was super good in the 90s, right? At the end of the 90s, 2000, it was awesome. You know, for me, being a racer, X Games was always like, you know, I wanted to figure out how to get in it, but there was really no sport or discipline that I could get in there and feel like, okay, this is credible enough where I should be trying to do this. And when I first competed in X Games for the high jump, that step up competition, I didn't compete in it until I could do another discipline, which they brought Supermoto in for racing, right? So I did 2 disciplines. And then that year I won the step up competition that I had that great battle with Matt Byton.
Was that the Staples Center? Where was
Staples
that?
Center.
Yeah.
We did the winning height like 14 times each. That was back.
How high was this?
It was 32 and a half feet, I think.
Was that fun to like try and do that every time and come down?
It was fun until you got to the highest point, the highest of the level. You know, you started getting really high, and then it's you know, you drop like a bag of potatoes. You know, like it's hard landings, and it's honestly when you're looking at the ramp and it's 30 feet up there, you're like, how in the hell am I going to get over this thing? It's so daunting, really, that it can even work. But so yeah, X Games for me had some. Man, I have some great memories of it. We had so much fun. It was just different than racing.
Yeah.
But I didn't really compete in step up until I could actually do a race where I felt like, okay, my discipline's racing. I'll race Supermoto and then I'll do this do the step up thing as a sideshow. And then eventually they brought Supercross in, right? So I competed in that and step up again. So I always wanted to figure out how to do it. I just didn't have a discipline really until they brought racing in.
Yep.
I always loved it though. I mean, just every year watching freestyle motocross and just what Travis would bring, it was just like I was on the edge of my seat, you know, all those years, even when he did that, like the first double flip, and it was always so fun to watch.
It was crazy to watch that in person, you know, because even now it's like it hasn't changed a lot. I know it's stepped up a little bit, but it's still kind of, you know, but it's watching those guys do that shit is like fuck, because
it's still pretty raw.
Yeah, because if they crash, they're done.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna break something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, those years when it was in San Francisco and on that, you know, dock, and then Travis did the jump in the bay and all that. Like, I mean, that was Travis. He brought some flair to it, you know. And then there was a rivalry between him and Deegan and all the Metal Militia dudes, and
well, that's where Jacko came in.
Yeah, right.
Jacko was a mechanic.
Yeah. He came in for best trick originally. The very first one, he came in as best trick. Yeah. So I mean, look, he knows what it's like to grind.
Yeah.
You know? That's why he loves it so much, and that's why he's good at it.
Yeah. He's still like.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing that.
But
now.
the years of you know, those guys trying to work out the, you know, it was the Pastrana and Nate Adams against the like Deegan and Feist, or you know, the Metal Militia dudes, whoever they were.
You know what I'll never forget is watching Nate Adams come out at A1 when he raced that first year.
Yeah.
I was literally standing like where he ripped out.
Yep.
And he'd hit the first whoops and then broke his wrist or broke
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
literally rip
Yeah.
out of the gate, and it was in may have still been practice.
It was, yeah.
and
Practice.
I was standing and then just over, broken wrist, done. It's
You know, a lot of the freestyle motocross guys, they were racers, and their dream was to race Supercross. it just never really worked out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So even a guy like Nate, who was just so great at freestyle motocross, never really was that great at racing. And, he just always has that thing. And it's like, I got to compete in Supercross, and it just never worked for him. But the tricks and stuff these guys can pull off it's nuts.
And he was the first person that I think ever see ride an electric dirt bike.
Was he?
Yeah, he ripped out to 1X Games, and I think an electric dirt bike. What's your opinion on electric bikes?
Well, I like the smell and I like the sound, so electric bikes don't have that.
It's true, though, right?
They are cool, and it seemed like that brand Alta or whatever had some momentum going, and it just got killed the last few years. But in the car world, I think it's cool. In dirt bike world, I don't know. They have Formula E. What's your opinion on Formula E? Do you like it?
It sucks.
Well, there you go. If we're at Supercross,
have you been to a race?
Not Formula E.
It's like watching fucking remote control cars go around.
Yeah.
And there's no and then when they bring the cars in, they change batteries. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah, or they change the driver into another car or something, right?
It's
for the second half. Yeah, I don't know how that would ever work.
There's no sound,
Yeah,
That's what
It's
I'd say. I think it'd be really weird to watch a full Supercross with all e-bikes. It would just be like, shoo, shoo.
Yeah, imagine we're just having a conversation, sitting here watching Supercross, just talking like this.
Yeah, no, it's
just weird.
It's we're on the same page.
Yeah, look, I'm all for advancements. I like what's going on. You just see it in everything. It's happening. But for closed course racing, there's nothing like that sound,
No. Speaking of sound, what was your transition into the off-road like? Like getting into a truck?
Yeah, I've always loved four wheels. So even throughout my moto career, I had driven. I always had shifter go-karts, and I was always trying to drive and do whatever I could when it was, talking about like extracurricular stuff.
Yep.
Whether it was off-road or go-karts or whatever it was, if I could find my way into a seat of a car race at sometimes, I raced some NASCAR stuff. I was just trying to do a little bit of everything because I'm a huge fan of all racing. And so off-road just kind of happened. I had a publicist named Cheryl Lynn. She is a woman publicist that I had for so many years, and she's the one that brought us on Leno and did some really, really cool things.
How was hanging out with Leno?
He was cool. We just went on his show a couple times. He's a big motorsport fan. It'd be cool to hang out with him and do like a car thing that he's got going on now, but we just were on the show or whatever. So we did get to have a track in his parking lot.
He's
though.
like the late show, like the biggest late night talk show of all time. Whatever.
Yeah.
He's also got like one of the most serious car collections, right?
Yeah, he does. Absolutely.
Any motorcycles in there?
I think there is. Yeah, I have never seen it, but I know people that have seen it. Pretty impressive. He's a car nut and a bike nut, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, off-road thing happened with just sort of by chance. There was a truck series, off-road truck series. Ricky Johnson, who was a former motocross pro, one of my heroes, was racing it, and Cheryl Lynch was doing publicist work for the guy that owned the series, this guy named Jim Baldwin, and Core Racing Series was coming to San Diego, and they thought it'd be a good idea because I could maybe try to help promote the race because I'm from San Diego, and they let me race the race in one of their spare trucks. So that's kind of how that worked, and ended up doing really well. Finished third in the first race I ever was in, and then which it kind of sucked me in, really. I was
I kind of see a pattern here.
I'm like done racing my moto, but now I'm sucked into, now I'm going to go race. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, wow, that was pretty fun. I have a seatbelt and
in a cage.
Yeah, and I can
listen to music.
Yeah, and I can go hard here without.
I don't think they listen to music.
Without worrying about.
Listen to music.
Are you listening to music?
No,
yeah,
no.
Metallica at all times.
Yeah.
No?
You can't hear anything in those, even when you have earplugs in.
It's loud.
Yeah, it's loud. So that's kind of just how that worked, and ended up racing short course off road for probably 8 or 9 years. Ended up winning the championship on my 8th season. I started driving for a few teams, and then I was like, man, these guys, they weren't listening to me with the truck and all that. So I ended up going and investing in all my own stuff, and got my own truck and my own team and my own sponsors, my own stuff. And 3 or 4 years into that, I finally figured out the puzzle and won the championship. So that was great. That was great. My kids. I have 2 daughters, and they love off-road, and we ride side-by-sides all the time. We go to the desert all the time. That's just what we do as a family. So naturally, we're racing.
Your girls are competing now too, right?
They were driving off-road trophy carts for a long time.
Yep.
They do some school sports now, but we're not really racing anything serious at the time.
Yep.
At this time, we're building some KRX 1000s, the new Kawasaki side-by-sides. We're building some of those to race some desert races in the new year in 22. So we're looking to, we go on the weekends and go to the desert, and we bring through 2 or 3 cars. Both my girls have their own cars. We do 100-mile days out in the desert, and they can't get enough. So as a family, we love it.
Yeah, it runs in the blood.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. How so what's what is kind of next for you? What's
I think right now I'm just really just trying to focus on the last, look, I only have a couple more years of being a at-home dad with my kids. They're about ready to go to college, I would assume, in 2-3 years, and so I just want to spend as much time with them and just try to at least promote values and stuff that I think is important in my kids when they go off to school, because you never know what happens once they leave the house. And so hopefully I can give them more of a great foundation along the way and just be the best dad I can be. I'm hosting the show Science of Supercross that we do during Supercross.
Yep.
That segment produced by Kawasaki. So I'm really working a lot with Kawasaki on brand ambassador stuff. Whatever we do, we doing a lot with the side-by-sides. I'm going to different events, different moto stuff. Just rode Supercross again about a month ago out in the Cowie track because Kawasaki has a new KX 450 SR, which is like a factory edition bike coming out. So I went and rode Supercross it was probably like a month ago. It was awesome. I had so much fun.
And that's got to be fun testing those bikes too, eh?
Yeah, it's fun. And these days I don't ride Supercross much anymore, and the jumps are a bit scary when you first show up the track. I'm like, there's not many 49-year-olds riding Supercross these days. So get out there, and it takes a little while to get it going again. But man, by the end of the day, I was having such a blast, and that day I got to ride with Axel, which was a good time. So just doing a lot of stuff with Kawasaki, and I'm lucky to make my own schedule, so it's not too bad these days.
Well, we appreciate you here at Monster Energy, and you're fucking Jeremy McGrath,
OG legend.
It just doesn't get any bigger. What Danny does here at the end, though, we have this like lightning round, and he fires these questions off. They're like,
cool,
and they're coming in. Oh, here they come.
Coming in.
There's the questions. Well, let me just say this: I appreciate being here with you guys. It's been super fun. Obviously, it's great to still be working in an industry that's really provided me everything. So. And I think it's proof that, if you love something enough, you can hang around and you can be good at still stuff after. And we're all sitting here. We're all sitting here proof of that.
Yeah, if you put enough time into any sport or industry, it'll put that time back into you.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's so true. And it's like the same for you, like rocking up to, Supercross events or just anything moto. For us, like going to snowboard stuff, it's cool because they're the younger kids that like
you guys get respect.
Yeah, it's cool, and
not even that you're looking for it, but people know how much you love it.
But then you can pass down like the good and the bad things and what to do and what not to do.
Totally.
And we got a lot of the what not to do's.
Yeah, right. Well,
that's right.
That's okay. You were growing up.
Yeah. If I could go back and make more mistakes, I think I would.
Yeah.
Make twice as many. All right, so we got some questions here for you.
Okay.
And whatever flies off the top of your head.
Right.
What was your biggest BMX idol growing up?
Biggest BMX idol? Gosh, man. Probably this guy that I looked up to back in the day was, I don't know. I mean, I was really good. One of my best buds was Eric Carter, but as far as pro level goes, maybe Tommy Brackens.
Nice. Okay. What is the key to having a long career in motorsports?
I think you have to figure out ways to maintain the passion for what you're doing, because I think that passion creates length in a career. And if you come around with a chip on your shoulder and, start disrespecting the sport that's really provided for you, and you come up with a bad attitude, then that can shorten things up. And I think that, there's a lot of things you can control, but there's some you can't. And you need to let some of the stuff you can't brush off your shoulders. And I think that creates length in a career.
If you had to be one freestyler motocrosser, would it be Travis Pastrana or Evel Knievel?
Was Evel Knievel a freestyle motocrosser?
I think he might be the first. would you consider him a freestyle motocrosser?
You know what I love about Evel Knievel is he really wasn't a dirt bike rider or a bike rider. He was a showman. And can you guys imagine going up to a jump and going, you know what, I got about a 5% chance of landing this, but I'm still going for it?
On a bike with no suspension?
Right.
Crazy.
Evel Knievel had some nuts on him.
I've scared myself thinking that and landing into powder 100 feet away. I can't imagine trying to land after 10 tour buses over there and there's no testing the speed.
And you're a professional. He really wasn't. He was more like a showman, circus guy.
Yeah.
But which you have to respect.
Yeah.
I mean, he went for these jumps when he had no business doing it. You know what I mean? So there's something to be said for that. But I think Travis Pastrana, he probably had more. I'd say he had more fun. I don't know. Evel probably had some fun.
I don't know. I'd be kind of pretty scared trying some of those double tricks for the first time as well. Double flips.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Travis has his own level of craziness, too.
I know. I just got invited to go do something with him in a couple weeks.
Don't do it.
You're going to get peer pressured into some stuff, dude. You're too old for it. Be careful.
Is this a setup?
Do you have a favorite go-to trick on your motorbike?
Obviously, it's a Nac Nac. I mean, that's kind of what I'm known for. And it's really the trick that I like. I mean, of course I like big whips and stuff like that, but everyone thinks I need to be doing the Nac Nac.
A whip with a Nac Nac.
Yeah, I can whip this way and do Nac Nac, but not upside down and Nac Nac.
And do you break that trick out every time you go to the desert with the kids and fam or no?
No.
It's gonna be
There's got to be people there.
There's got to be a certain style jump or something like,
Right.
You can't do it on a little jump. You need a big jump.
How many video games have you been in or created?
I think I've been in maybe 2 or 3. So there was Jeremy McGrath Supercross 98, and there was Jeremy McGrath Supercross 2000, and then I might have been a guest on another one maybe. They're talking about a new one now, another legend.
There better be. I think
sick.
the new video game should be like what Dingo said.
Oh, yeah,
like
then
that
we get the
ultimate
lineup.
race.
You know
we
what
get
I mean?
the lineup finally.
Yeah.
You guys want to be on a motorbike? We'll just get you guys to play on a video game controller.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
And then, what is one of your pump up tracks when you were going into a race? What were you like listening to before a race?
I was always like a, I mean, it's obviously evolves over the years, right? I love rap music, so I was always listening to some old Easy or some Dre or some Snoop or something that would just get you. Even Biggie back then in the late 90s, it was all about Biggie, right? It was Tupac and Biggie.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with like some badass rock music too. Linkin Park, Metallica. I used to train in Metallica. Some Megadeth. Even what's his name that used to sing the song Mother.
Danzig,
yeah, some Danzig,
Misfits.
Also some Social D back in the day. I mean, I'm kind of I like all types of music. I just like it all. But the rock music and the rap music was what I would use to get ready to race.
I hear that because like something about rap music where it like keeps you pumped, but also like calm and stable and like that rhythm. Like I took a few Olympic runs to the game in 50 Cent.
Yeah, there you go.
And
the rhythms and then the lyrics of them always boasting about everything kind of pumped you up. Like, all right, cool, I'm gonna be badass like this dude, And the way Biggie and Tupac and those guys came with their rhymes was pretty impressive.
All right, and the final question for you is, in your opinion, who is the greatest motocross racer or supercross of all time besides yourself?
Besides myself, I mean, it's definitely Ricky Carmichael. I think, there's like 5 guys you could name, right? I mean, there's Ricky Carmichael, there's James Stewart, there's Ryan Villapoto, there's Ryan Dungey. I don't know. Myself.
Oh, one more, because I just thought of this one from
longest lightning
my
round ever.
It's not the longest, it's the mediumest longest. How often do you dream about Supercross?
You know what? It's weird. I still think about motorcycles every day. That's all I think about. to be honest. I mean, I don't ride as much as I used to, but I watch every race. I'm still super into it. And I think that going back to what I said earlier is like, you know, my love for it really created my length in my career and created this job after my career. And just like, I just love dirt bikes. So, yeah, I think about it a lot. Yeah.
I like that. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thank you for coming
boys.
out.
Unleashed with the Dingo and Danny. Fueled by Monster Energy.